Hello, my name is Jared Wilson. Welcome to my AEP 880 Module 4 presentation. It is on culturally responsive instructions and behavioral support systems. For this presentation, I will be instructing on what this looks like, how it can be done, how we can implement this type of instruction, and how it currently is seen at SCA. So what is culturally responsive instruction? It is seen as pedagogy that is a student-centered approach to teaching in which students' unique cultural strengths are identified and nurtured to promote student achievement and a sense of well-being about the student's cultural place in the world. It's also described as culturally responsive teaching is not about one day of celebrating a certain culture. It's about the daily practices that bring students' cultures into instruction, valuing each student and what they bring, and teaching them as people first in order to maximize their potential as students. It's often seen as broken down into three functional dimensions. You have institutional, personal, and instructional. Things that kind of prohibit or get in the way of culturally responsive instruction tends to be fears, stereotypes, and biases. So what does this look like? It tends to look like the teacher as a facilitator. Rather than the teacher controlling every aspect of the lesson, the teacher sets parameters and provides avenues for each student to participate and engage in learning. It has student control of portions of the lesson, so you have lesson items that the students are able to interact with, present on, and really include their culture and their beliefs and how they feel about a certain topic or how they feel that they should teach a specific item. Instruction around groups or pairs. So grouping the students so that you can involve a higher level of engagement between students, also so that each student is given an opportunity to be a listener as well as a sharer and be able to have some of those conversations in a setting that allows them to be more comfortable and allows them to share more with each student. Provide student choice on assignments. So this can be a choice board. This could be a list of choices to do. This could be a general idea, a general standard, and then letting the students decide how they want to approach meeting or showing their mastery of that standard. Allowing students to collaborate and work in groups. Intentionally addressing visual, tactile, and auditory learners in this lesson or in lessons. Being able to have really a diverse way to share that information and teach that information. This allows students that learn differently, as well as students who may need different types of accommodations to grasp and fully understand the content that's being taught. This is also seen as creating lessons that connect the content to the students' culture and daily lives. So this is really bringing in the student culture and how you can make assignments that allow students to make this connection. Oftentimes we see students, we give students content that they may have no specific context for. For example, if you are living in Hawaii and you start teaching lessons that might have to do with snow, for example, as a clear demonstration, students will have very little context and background of that knowledge. Continued, using students' cultural experiences in daily instruction. This looks like embracing native language and students' families as assets. This also kind of hits on the fact of bringing some of those outside resources into the classroom, creating a classroom environment that represents and respects all students. This includes having different literature that supports different cultures as well as different family dynamics. Communicating clear expectations for all students, not just students with similar cultures, not just students from one specific culture, but all students in general. As educators, we need to become introspective about our own culture, our own background, and our unconscious biases while working to make our classroom more diverse for our young learners. Providing background knowledge and experiences for all students, including ESS students. So giving them that background knowledge to access the content that's appropriate. And it also looks like replacing zero tolerance policies with a tiered and just approach to discipline. So rather than having those zero tolerances, really kind of diving into how you can approach the discipline, how you can discipline the student that's going to result in a positive manner rather than a negative repercussion for making a decision. How is this done? Well, teachers must first start with identifying their own cultural and experiential implicit bias and practicing removing it so that they can become effective and culturally responsive educators to serve their students well. So currently here at SCA, we see that we can boost vocabulary. This is what we use right now, is creating active student engagement and vocabulary. Building is an important equity strategy. The students engage in wordplay, word consciousness, and word knowledge. How we specifically title it here at SCA is our vocab of the day, and when we use our cross-cutting vocabulary. So when we find those words that we might see in science as well as math, really making that connection with students. Another one we see at SCA is the background knowledge, the community curiosities. And that is looking at surveys, community outreach, and community resources. How do we get to know our students? How do we get to know their background knowledge? And how are we able to pull that culture in so that it can be beneficial to our students in the classroom? Build routines for the brain. Personal trainer of their cognitive development. Consistent lens for examining new information. To tap into student cultures, we look at student surveys, we look at the literature found in our classrooms and the exploration and social studies. So with our literature in our classrooms, we're constantly scanning to find different things that highlight different cultures, different family dynamics, different types of examples of what life looks like, to try to not just exhibit one culture's view, but multiple cultures' view. School-wide goals toward cultural responsiveness to have a school environment where cultural competence is at the forefront. Showing positive behavior intervention supports, such as PBIS. The goal of this is to help promote school safety and climate within districts and campuses alike. And then social skill instruction. So really taking those students and showing them how to socially interact. We see a lot of this with our GT students that tend to use this one-on-one social interaction skill education. Also currently at UCF or at SCA, we use instructional materials that relate to a variety of cultures. We communicate our goals with students. I primarily see this, especially when we start talking about our NWEA and our different testing that we do, really showing these goals to our students and how they're going to build towards those goals. We also see some of these goals as how do they want to develop more as a student, as a sibling, as a family member, and setting those goals with those kiddos. Embrace an asset-based mindset. Tiered interventions for CLD students. We have culturally responsive curricula and teacher preparation, and school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports. So who's all involved in trying to create this atmosphere that allows all students to thrive? Well, looking at who is involved, meeting the needs of those students who are different requires professionals to think differently about service provision. So really takes a whole lot of different resources and individuals to look at how the student can best be supported. Primarily, I see the classroom teachers and the team teachers working together for this, as well as the support staff, because they are every day working with those students. I also highlighted parents as well, because we are such a tight-knit group and such a strong relationship is needed in order to fully support that student. And it comes from bringing parents' point in, bringing in what they have about their culture, what they can share about their culture, and what they value most, and working with our team of teachers here at school to support that student in a way that educationally is sound, but is also culturally sound as well. And then administration. Prior research suggests that school principals have found or can have a profoundly deep impact on instruction and student learning. And then we use our specific coordinators, such as our ELL teachers, our ESS teachers, and our teachers that are designated per student or per caseload. Students that are impacted. It's widely reported that minoritized students identify often marginalized, excluded, and eventually get pressured out of school. We see issues with color blindness whenever teachers are not embracing different culture. They're trying to just see everyone as one color, as one culture, and they're trying to not single anyone out, but in turn end up doing just that. We see a lot of statistics surrounding Latino families that are impacted. We have families with different parent structures, students with minority backgrounds. You have disciplinary disappropriation, which is looking at the differences between cultures and discipline. You have cultural mismatch, where just because one culture finds something appropriate versus another culture's appropriateness, that bit of varying causes a mismatch and many conflicts, as well as school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports. Implementation. How do we do this? So communicating clear, high expectations for everybody. Lesson plans that are culturally responsive. This could look like including something whenever you're writing your lesson plans of just thinking, how is this going to affect all of my students? Or how might this affect some students that I have not done a good job of yet, really giving them an opportunity to bring their culture into the classroom. Evidence-based lesson plan. So where's the evidence proving that this type of lesson taught this way is going to have a positive learning outcome for all students? Looking at student surveys, avoiding that color blindness mentioned before, and addressing the discipline gap found between different cultures in the U.S. and in our classrooms. Here is a snapshot of my correlation of this assignment. The biggest thing was focusing on culturally responsive and inclusive pedagogy in our classrooms and in our schools, and how teachers fully immerse their students in diverse cultures can start a ripple effect in helping close that gap between differing cultures. Why is it relevant? As a teacher, it's relevant for me to create a climate in my classroom that allows all students to survive, but also to learn and to really gain a deeper knowledge of something. And when students are not able to really be themselves and feel supported, they're not able to gain near as much of the information as we would like as educators. Working at Fort Lewis College gave me an opportunity to work with very diverse students than what I was familiar with growing up. Making that connection with connection resources I used for this video, I was able to make a strong connection between the content and how I can apply it to my school. It also gave me an opportunity to look at here at SCA how we can work on the things we're already doing right, and how we can begin to supplement what we are not doing well at, and how we can become a better inclusive culture all around at SCA. Here is a quick glance of my resources that I used for this video, and thank you for your time on my AEP 880 Module 4 presentation.